Hey guys, tonight we find ourselves not in foggy Victorian London this time, but on a sun-bleached hilltop overlooking the blue Aegean Sea. The cicadas hum lazily and the olive less grows because, well, the olives haven't been invented yet. You're standing where the city of Athens will one day rise, except right now it's little more than a cluster of huts, goat pens, and dusty paths winding between rocky outcrops. The air smells faintly of sheep's wool and roasting barley. The people here are restless, though not because of insomnia remedies gone wrong, but because they face a decision so big it could shape their city for eternity. And cheeky reality check. If you were asked to pick a personal god for your hometown, you'd probably panic, mumble something about free Wi-Fi, and hope nobody noticed. These Athenians don't get that option. They need a divine patron, and fast. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're up late with me, post your location and the local time in the comments. I love seeing where you all are tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The world around you is alive with anticipation. Herdsmen chatter nervously while tending sheep on the hillside. Women grind grain in stone mortar, pausing to gossip about which god might bring the best future for their children. Even the children sense the gravity of the moment, wide-eyed and whispering tales of thunderbolts, sea storms, and gleaming armor. Athens, though it doesn't even have that name, yet needs protection, guidance, and perhaps even a marketing gimmick. Cities without patron gods don't last long in this mythic era. Imagine yourself walking among them. The sun blazes down on your linen tunic, and dust puffs up with every step. You hear rumors swirling. Poseidon, the god of the sea, has set his eyes on this place. The fishermen cheer at that idea, picturing fleets of ships bristling with tridents painted on their sails. Meanwhile, others whisper about Athena, the goddess of wisdom and war strategy. Farmers nod approvingly. They think brains might outlast brawn. Already you can feel a split forming among the people. Do they want the crashing power of waves or the quiet strength of wisdom? Now, here's the mainstream fact that anchors this myth in history. The Athenians really did tie their identity to Athena through myths of this contest. Ancient sources like Herodotus and later writers tell us versions of this story, though not always with identical details. A quirky tidbit? Some versions insist that Poseidon offered not just a saltwater spring, but also the world's very first horse, because nothing says vote for me like galloping transportation. Historians still argue whether the horse angle was a later addition to flatter cavalry-loving aristocrats. Either way, the central conflict remains. Water or wisdom, trident or olive branch dot, as evening falls. You join a group gathered on a rocky plateau, the future site of the Acropolis. The last rays of sun paint the limestone cliffs golden, and the people murmur about omens. The gods have noticed this city, they say, and soon will arrive. Your pulse quickens not from fear, but from curiosity. What will they look like? Will Zeus himself descend, beard flowing, lightning crackling? Or will subtler signs mark the beginning? The air grows still. Even the cicadas pause, as if nature holds its breath. You hear the distant crash of waves far below, mingling with the sigh of wind through the scrubby grass. The moment is ripe, and you, along with the anxious Athenians, realize the gods are indeed paying attention. And here's where you notice something both amusing and sobering. In these myths, gods act like contestants on a divine talent show. Each brings a gift, hoping for applause, maybe even a vote. It's less about mortal needs and more about divine bragging rights. You can almost imagine Zeus leaning back on a celestial judge's chair, holding up a bronze plaque that reads, 7 out of 10 good effort, Poseidon. But jokes aside, The tension is real. The people need to commit. A city can't serve two masters forever, not when those masters are prone to divine jealousy. And so, as twilight deepens and torches flare to life along the hill, the stage is set for a legendary showdown. In the hush, you feel the hairs rise on your arms. A rumble echoes faintly through the ground. Somewhere in the distance, a wave crashes louder than usual. The Athenians murmur it must be Poseidon making his entrance. Soon, Athena too will arrive. Quiet but steady, you're caught in the middle, a spectator in a myth where the outcome seems inevitable. Yet in this moment still teeters on the edge of possibility. For now, you settle on a stone bench, torchlight flickering on your face, and wait with the Athenians. Sleepiness creeps at the edges of your mind, but the story pulls you forward gently, like the tide rising against the shore. The torches flicker more brightly now, casting jagged shadows on the stone. You shift on your bench, squinting toward the horizon where the sound of waves grows louder, closer, and far more insistent. The people of this still unnamed city turn their heads as one, as if the sea itself has risen to eavesdrop. You smell the salt in the air, pungent and bracing, and feel the faint spray of seawater carried on the breeze, even though you're high above the shore. The moment is here. The gods have taken notice. Asterisk, and when the Olympians notice something, they rarely arrive quietly. Asterisk, imagine the top of Mount Olympus, clouds swirling in gold and violet. There sits Zeus, lightning crackling like static across his fingertips. He leans forward, peering down at this tiny settlement of mortals who dare to choose a divine patron. His eyes are sharp, his beard magnificent, and his presence alone enough to rattle the bones of any mortal. But Zeus, for all his grandeur, is not the only one watching. Hera sits beside him, expression poised somewhere between boredom and judgment, her golden diadem glittering faintly. Hermes, ever nosy, flits in and out, whispering commentary to anyone who will listen. Even Apollo shades his eyes, smirking slightly, as though he already knows who deserves to win. Asterisk, the mainstream fact here is that Greek myths often personify gods in very human terms. Jealous, proud, prone to competitions. This myth is no exception. Rather than calmly assigning patronage, the gods treat Athens like a prize to be won. It reminds us how the Greeks understood divinity. Powerful, yes, but also dramatic and emotional. Asterisk quirky tidbit. In some vase paintings, the gods are shown gathered like an audience, watching Athena and Poseidon present their gifts. It almost resembles a civic jury, or even a talent show panel, long before Simon Cowell. Historians still argue whether this imagery came first in art or in storytelling. But either way, the scene feels surprisingly familiar. Deities as judges, mortals as contestants. Asterisk down on the hillside. The mortals sense the weight of divine attention. They whisper prayers hastily, each family quietly rooting for the god who aligns with their own livelihoods. Fishermen clasp hands, murmuring to Poseidon for calm seas and plentiful catch. Farmers press their palms together, hoping Athena will bring wisdom for tending the soil. Children peer into the torchlight, eyes round with awe. They don't fully understand the stakes, but they feel the tingle of something immense pressing close. Asterisk, and then rumble. The ground trembles faintly, not enough to topple you, but enough to draw gasps from the crowd. You glance around, heart quickening, and notice a ripple of energy, as though the stones themselves hold their breath. A breeze sharpens, carrying with it a sound both alien and familiar. Hoofbeats? Or waves, it's hard to tell. The gods are stirring, and mortals know instinctively that their world is about to change. Asterisk, it's easy to chuckle now. Centuries later, imagining these villagers thinking their sleepy town was the center of cosmic politics. But here's the gentle irony. They were right. Myths gave identity, explained origins, and justified why a city mattered. Without Athena's story, Athens is just another settlement. With it, the city claims divine approval, an origin tale rooted in grandeur. You realize you're watching not just myth, but marketing the gods are about to brand this city. Asterisk, the scholarly debate lingers. Did early Athenians genuinely believe Athena appeared on a rocky outcrop? Or was the story a retroactive explanation for why the olive tree was sacred there? Some historians argue the myth was invented to explain pre-existing cult worship of Athena. Others insist the myth itself shaped how Athenians viewed the olive as central to their economy and culture. The truth, like so much in mythology, lies hazy between faith and practicality. Asterisk, back on the hilltop, torches flare brighter as a sudden gust of wind tears through the crowd. You clutch your cloak tighter. The villagers murmur in awe, some bowing, others frozen. And you, sleepy yet alert, realize that Athens is no longer just a humble gathering of huts. It has become a stage, and the gods, one by one, are about to take their places. Asterisk. The sound of surf grows louder, pounding in rhythm like a giant drumbeat. You turn toward the sea, your eyes straining in the dusk. Suddenly, the water surges upward, not as a gentle tide, but as a towering swell. From its crest steps a figure tall and fierce, his bronze beard glinting as though burnished by lightning. Poseidon has arrived. Asterisk, the Athenians gasp, clutching at one another. His trident gleams in the torchlight, 3 prongs sharp enough to pierce mountains. Around his shoulders drape kelp-green robes, heavy with spray, while his hair whips in the sea wind. With each stride he takes, the ground trembles slightly, as though remembering that this god commands earthquakes as easily as waves. Asterisk. You notice how his arrival contrasts with the quiet murmurs of the crowd. He is grand, showy, every step an announcement. This is no modest appeal. This is spectacle. Poseidon doesn't whisper his power. He floods it across the hillside, daring anyone to ignore him. Asterisk, mainstream fact. Ancient sources often describe Poseidon's temperament as stormy, both literally and figuratively. He is quick to anger, fond of displays, and never shy of confrontation. His reputation in mythology matches his entrance here. Dramatic, forceful, and proud. Asterisk, quirky tidbit. Some versions of this myth say Poseidon struck his trident against the earth, not just to create a saltwater spring, but to summon the first horse. Imagine that a magnificent stallion, snorting foam, galloping forth from solid rock. It's the sort of flourish Poseidon would adore. Equal parts shock and awe and impractical gift-giving. Historians still argue whether the horse gift belonged to the earliest version of the myth, or if it was a later embellishment by horse-loving aristocrats in Athens. Either way, it adds an odd humor. A god offering horsepower before cars were even a thought. Asterisk, Poseidon raises his trident high, and the crowd hushes. His voice booms like thunder rolling across cliffs. People of this land, he proclaims, choose me, and you shall command the seas. Your city will rise strong upon waves, your fleets unmatched, your name carried across every shore. Asterisk, the fishermen cheer, eyes glinting at the promise of endless bounty. Shipwrights nod eagerly, picturing warships gliding swift across the horizon. Yet not all are convinced. You notice a farmer frowning, clutching a basket of figs close to her chest. What use is salt water to her thirsty fields? Asterisk, here's the irony that makes you smirk. Poseidon's dramatic flourish produces a fountain of water, but when one villager leans in, cups his hands, and takes a sip, his face twists in disgust. Salty, he cries. Useless for crops, useless for drinking. The crowd ripples with uncertainty. The spring is beautiful, yes, but practical? Not so much. Poseidon scowls, clearly unused to mortals, critiquing his gifts. Asterisk, you find yourself thinking of a modern talent show again. Poseidon is the contestant who dazzles with fireworks, but forgets the routine needs substance. He gives spectacle, but not sustainability. Even so, his pride radiates. He believes he's already won. Asterisk, the scholarly debate continues. Was Poseidon ever truly a serious contender for Athens? Or was his presence always meant to highlight Athena's superiority? Some suggest the myth reflects political tensions. Athens had to balance seafaring ambitions with agricultural needs. Others argue it was simply an entertaining story to explain why the city revered Athena more than Poseidon. Asterisk for now, though in this moment, the hillside vibrates with Poseidon's power. The fountain gushes, sparkling under torchlight, its spray catching golden flecks as if touched by shell gold itself. The Athenians are awed, but divided and impressed by the display, wary of its usefulness. Asterisk, Poseidon plants his trident in the earth with a final thud, sea spray still dripping from his robes, and steps back. His eyes gleam with certainty. He believes the city is his. The people murmur uneasily, unsure if salt water alone is enough to sustain their lives. And as silence settles, everyone turns toward the other side of the hill. They are waiting. For if Poseidon has finished, then surely Athena must be near. Asterisk. The salt spray still hangs in the air when another figure appears, not with thunder, not with crashing waves, but with a hush that feels heavier than silence. You turn from the gleaming fountain of Poseidon to see a tall, composed woman walking steadily toward the crowd. Her armor gleams faintly in the torchlight, polished bronze catching each flicker like sunlight on a calm morning sea. This is Athena, goddess of wisdom, war strategy, and crafts, as she does not need to announce herself with storms. She simply arrives, and the crowd leans forward instinctively, as though drawn by gravity. Asterisk. Her face is calm, thoughtful, and unflinching. Where Poseidon's beard dripped with seawater, Athena's helmet sits crisp and dry, the plume flowing like a crest of flame. She carries no weapon raised high, though her spear rests at her side. Instead, she holds herself with quiet certainty, her gaze steady on the people of the city. Asterisk, mainstream fact. Athena was often depicted not only as a warrior goddess, but also as a protector of cities and bringer of practical gifts, knowledge, crafts, justice. While Poseidon embodied raw force, Athena was remembered for cleverness, measured judgment, and foresight. It is no accident that she became associated with Athens, a city that prided itself on intellect and order. Asterisk, quirky tidbit. In some depictions, Athena's arrival at this contest includes her carrying a shield decorated with the head of Medusa, the Aegis, a terrifying token of her power. Imagine that, a crowd already anxious about divine competition, suddenly faced with a shield screaming with serpents. Yet historians still argue whether the Aegis was part of the myth here, or whether later artists simply couldn't resist giving her the full dramatic wardrobe. Asterisk, Athena surveys the crowd, her voice steady, neither booming like Poseidon's nor trembling. People of this land, she begins, you must not only survive but thrive. Your homes must be safe, your fields fruitful, your hands busy with work that builds, not only destroys. I offer you not spectacle, but substance. Asterisk, the villagers lean closer. Farmers nod, recognizing in her words the weight of their daily toil. Weavers and potters exchange glances, imagining what tools and crafts might grow from her favor. Even some fishermen pause, realizing that ships without reason, without guidance, are easily wrecked. Athena speaks not to impress, but to assure, and the assurance settles like a blanket over the crowd. Asterisk, you feel the contrast deep in your bones. Poseidon thundered. Athena reasons. Poseidon dazzled with salty spectacle. Athena promises stability. One god offered a fountain to marvel at, the other offers an idea. a future built on wisdom and labor. You realize the people are beginning to shift, their curiosity now sharpened into expectation. What, exactly, will her gift be? Asterisk, she pauses, lowering herself gracefully to one knee. Her bronze fingers press into the earth. The torchlight dances across her calm face as she concentrates. For a moment, nothing happens. The crowd shifts uneasily, and then there is motion. Asterisk, from the dry soil, a tiny shoot unfurls, pale and green. Slowly it lengthens, leaves spreading silver green in the torchlight. The trunk thickens, roots twist deep into the earth, and within moments there stands a full-grown tree, sturdy, serene, and quietly magnificent. The olive tree. Asterisk. The crowd gasps not from the roar of water, but from the stillness of life unfolding before their eyes. Its leaves shimmer, silver undersides flickering as they catch the firelight. Its trunk is rough and strong, as though it has already stood for centuries. The air fills with a faint, earthy scent, and you can almost imagine the promise of oil pressed from its fruit. Asterisk. Athena rises, brushing her hands free of dust. "This," she says simply, "is my gift. The olive will give you food, oil for your lamps, wood for your hearths, and trade across the seas. It is peace, it is prosperity, it is endurance." Asterisk. The villagers murmur, and you see the shift in their eyes. This is no glittering fountain to look at and forget. This is sustenance, warmth, and wealth for generations. Some of the crowd kneel, others clap softly, almost reverently. Asterisk. The scholarly debate lingers here too. Some historians wonder whether the olive tree myth was a way to explain the real economic importance of olives in ancient Athens. They truly were central to food, light, and trade. Others argue the story symbolized Athens' choice of intellect over brute force. Either way, the myth's lesson shines clearly in this moment. Wisdom plants roots, while pride makes waves. Asterisk. And so Athena stands beside her new tree, calm and unyielding as the people whisper among themselves. They have seen the fountain, and they have seen the olive. Two gifts, two gods, two futures. The decision hovers in the air, as delicate and inevitable as sleep tugging at your eyes. The crowd has grown silent, the torches crackling softly, as if reluctant to intrude. Two gods have presented themselves. Two gifts stand before the people. The fountain of salt water, still bubbling and gleaming under the moon, and the olive tree, leaves rustling gently, though no wind stirs. The Athenians glance back and forth, torn between awe and practicality. It is at this moment that Zeus himself rises to speak. Asterisk. The sky seems to shimmer as the king of gods descends. Not with lightning or roaring thunder. He doesn't need to prove himself here, but with a presence that hushes the very night. His golden robes catch starlight. His beard glows faintly like sunlit clouds, and his eyes sweep over mortals and immortals alike. He raises one hand, and the murmurs of the people die instantly. Even Poseidon, fuming in the corner with trident clutched tight, lowers his gaze. Asterisk. Mainstream fact. Greek myths often depict Zeus as the ultimate arbiter among the gods. Though not always consistent in fairness, he presided over contests like this, deciding disputes with an air of authority. It was his voice that carried weight, his nod that determined fate. Asterisk. Quirky tidbit. In some lesser-known accounts, the jury was not Zeus alone, but the 12 Olympians, or even the citizens of Athens themselves. One version even claims the women of Athens cast their votes for Athena, tipping the balance in her favor, an origin story for both democracy and the olive tree rolled into one. Historians still argue which version came first, but all agree on the outcome. Athena wins. Poseidon sulks. He says, clears his throat, a sound that rumbles like distant mountains shifting. "People of this land," he intones, "you have seen the gifts offered. You must judge which god shall be your protector. His gaze lingers on the villagers, who shuffle nervously, whispering in huddled clusters. Farmers praise the olive's promise of food, oil, and shade. Fishermen mutter about the salt fountain, which at least promises abundance of sea power. Craftsmen marvel at the wood of the olive, imagining handles for tools, beams for roofs, even delicate carvings. Children stare up at the gods wide-eyed, sensing a moment of destiny, though they cannot grasp it. Asterisk. You notice how the scene plays out like an early debate, almost a democratic exercise. The people weigh usefulness against spectacle, sustenance against flash. Some lean toward Poseidon, enchanted by his grandeur. Others nod at Athena, murmuring about stability and wisdom. Asterisk Poseidon sees the hesitation and thunders forward, trident slamming into the ground with a crack. You would spurn the sea? He growls, eyes flashing like storm clouds. Without me, your ships will founder. Your enemies will swallow you whole. Choose Athena, and you doom yourselves to weakness. His voice roars so loud that the fountain trembles. Asterisk Athena does not shout. She simply gestures to the tree beside her, now heavy with unripe fruit. Choose me, she says quietly, and you will endure. This tree will not vanish in a storm. It will not poison your lips. It will not demand war. It will stand by you, season after season, as I will. Asterisk the contrast is striking Poseidon's threats against Athena's calm assurance. You can feel the crowd beginning to tilt. Asterisk Zeus raises his hand once more, and silence falls like a veil. His eyes shift from the restless fountain to the steadfast olive tree. He nods, almost imperceptibly, as if acknowledging something more than the gifts themselves. The contest is set, he declares. The city shall choose, and the city shall endure. Asterisk, you can almost hear the tension in the air, stretched taut like a bowstring. The Athenians shuffle closer, their whispers rising again. In this moment, you realize what the myth has always meant. This is not just about two gods competing. This is about a city deciding its own identity, whether it will lean toward raw power or toward wisdom, whether it will chase the roar of waves or the roots of peace. Asterisk the torches flicker. The olive leaves gleam silver in the firelight. And the people know the decision is upon them. Asterisk. The night air feels thicker now, as though every torch smoke curl and every heartbeat from the crowd is slowed, waiting. Poseidon stands with trident planted firmly, his saltwater fountain hissing and gurgling beside him. Athena waits beside her olive tree, leaves shimmering as if touched by moonlight itself. Zeus has declared the contest. Now it falls to the gifts to speak for themselves. Asterisk Poseidon strides forward first. His sandaled feet leave wet marks on the stone, as though he's dripping the sea wherever he walks. With a thunderous shout, he raises his trident and drives it into the bedrock. The ground splits, a jagged crack racing outward, and from it bursts a geyser of foaming water. The spray glitters in the torchlight, catching the gasps of the crowd. For a moment, the people cheer. It looks miraculous, dazzling, a promise of bounty. Asterisk, but one bold villager steps forward, kneels at the edge of the fountain, and cups the water in his hand. He sips. His face contorts instantly. Salt. He spits, shaking his head. It burns the tongue. Another tries, hopeful, but reaches the same conclusion. Murmurs ripple outward. It is beautiful. Yes, but useless for drinking, for crops, even for daily life, not to risk mainstream fact. Poseidon's gift of salt water symbolizes his domain over the sea, and by extension, naval might. For Athenians, who would one day build fleets that dominated the Aegean, this was no small promise. Yet, in the story, the water is undrinkable, impractical. It is grandeur without daily use. Asterisk quirky tidbit. A few versions of the myth replaced the salt spring with a horse, a magnificent animal, snorting fire, strong and swift. Poseidon, in this telling, is said to have invented the first horse as his gift to humanity. Historians still argue whether this was a later addition, crafted to appeal to Athenian elites who adored cavalry. Imagine the scene: a horse galloping from cracked stone, eyes blazing. Impressive, but again less practical than an olive tree. Poseidon, however, is not swayed by murmurs. He lifts his voice again, booming, "Do not be fooled. With me, your ships will rule the waves. You will conquer islands, trade with distant shores, and your name will echo across the seas." His words crash like breakers on cliffs, and for a moment, fishermen and traders in the crowd nod eagerly. Naval power is tempting. Who wouldn't want their little hilltop village to be the envy of empires? But you notice others frowning. Farmers clutch baskets of barley, potters think of clay, mothers hush their children. Salt water may make war and travel possible, but it does not put bread on the table or oil in the lamp. The scholarly debate continues. Some argue that Poseidon's gift represents the allure of military dominance, while Athena's represents the slower but steadier wealth of agriculture and peace. Others suggest the myth reflects real tension in Athens' history, balancing seafaring ambitions with agricultural stability. Whatever the case, the story paints Poseidon as dazzling but impractical, a showman more than a provider. Poseidon sees hesitation in the crowd, and his face darkens. He slams his trident again, and the ground trembles. "You will regret choosing against me," he warns, eyes like storm clouds ready to break. His pride fills the air like thunder, daring anyone to contradict him. The Athenians exchange glances, uneasy. Some still marvel at the fountain, still drawn to the gleam of Poseidon's promise. Others whisper doubts. And you, standing among them, feel the tension pressing in. Poseidon has shown his power, but has he shown care? His gift may impress, but can it sustain? As his saltwater fountain hisses behind him, Poseidon steps back, arms folded, convinced his grandeur has sealed the deal. The crowd stirs, uncertain, waiting. And across the torchlit space, Athena lifts her calm gaze, preparing to show her answer. The hush is almost tangible now, heavy as a woolen cloak draped across the crowd. The fountain of salt water still splashes noisily beside Poseidon, but the Athenians seem less enchanted than before. Their eyes keep shifting to the other side, where Athena stands quietly, one hand resting on the shaft of her spear, her expression as calm as a still pond. She waits until the murmurs fade, until every torch crackle and restless cough dies away, and then she steps forward. Athena kneels, touching her bronze fingers to the soil. The people lean closer, puzzled. No thunder, no waves, no explosions of power. Just a goddess crouching, her palm flat against the dust. For a long breath, nothing happens. You can almost feel Poseidon's smug smile. And then there is motion. A pale green shoot pokes up through the soil. Slowly it rises, stretching fragile tendrils skyward. Leaves unfurl, silver on their undersides, shimmering in the torchlight. The shoot thickens, the trunk hardens, branches twist outward. Before the crowd's eyes, a tree takes form, sturdy, rooted, generous. The first olive tree. The Athenians gasp softly. It is not spectacular like Poseidon's fountain. It does not roar or dazzle, but it breathes usefulness. You can almost smell the faint, peppery tang of olives that are not yet even ripe. You see the promise of oil pressed into lamps, glistening in clay jars. You imagine bread dipped in golden liquid, bodies warmed in winter, merchants carrying amphorae to trade across the seas. The tree offers no noise, No violence, only quiet endurance. Asterisk mainstream fact. The olive tree truly did become central to Athens. Olive oil-fueled lamps, seasoned food, anointed athletes, and even served as offerings in religious rituals. Groves of sacred olives surrounded the city, and destroying one was considered sacrilege. In many ways, the myth simply explained the already existing reverence for this remarkable tree. Asterisk, quirky tidbit. One story claims that the original olive tree Athena planted still stood on the Acropolis centuries later, even after Persian invaders burned the city. Supposedly, the very next day, a fresh shoot sprouted from its charred stump, a living sign that Athena's gift was eternal. Historians still argue whether this was fact or legend, but the symbolism is irresistible. Resilience, rebirth, and divine favor wrapped into one leafy package. Asterisk, the villagers press closer to Athena's tree. One farmer runs her hands along the bark, marveling at its strength. A potter plucks a leaf and rubs it between his fingers, amazed at the sheen. Children touch the silver-green leaves, laughing softly. You notice even some fishermen, previously wooed by Poseidon, nodding thoughtfully. Ships may rule seas, but olives rule bellies. Asterisk, Athena does not boast. She simply gestures to the tree. Here is food for your hunger, oil for your lamps, wood for your hearths, and peace, for this tree thrives not in war, but in care. It is my gift, and through it I shall protect your city. Asterisk, the words sink in. They are not shouted, not thundered, they are sown, like seeds in soil, ready to grow in the minds of the people. You feel the difference instantly. Poseidon's gift impressed the eyes. Athena's gift touches the heart. Asterisk, the scholarly debate here is fascinating. Some argue that this contest was an allegory for Athens' identity, choosing intellect, peace, and agriculture over brute force. Others suggest it was simply myth-making to explain why olives were so vital to the Athenian economy. Either way, the outcome is the same. Athena's olive was not just practical, it was symbolic. It declared Athens as a city of wisdom, not of tempest. Asterisk, Poseidon scowls, his fountain bubbling angrily, salt spray stinging the night air. But the people barely notice him now. They whisper eagerly about lamps that might burn through the night, ships that might carry jars of oil to distant lands, wealth that might flow from a simple, sturdy tree. Asterisk, you feel it in the atmosphere. The tide is turned. The saltwater fountain hisses loudly, but the olive tree's quiet rustle speaks louder. The people of this city have seen both gifts, and already, in their hearts, they know which one will shape their future. Asterisk, Poseidon strides forward first. His sandaled feet leave wet marks on the stone, as though he's dripping the sea wherever he walks. With a thunderous shout, he raises his trident and drives it into the bedrock. The ground splits, a jagged crack racing outward, and from it bursts a geyser of foaming water. The spray glitters in the torchlight, catching the gasps of the crowd. For a moment, the people cheer. It looks miraculous, dazzling, a promise of bounty. Asterisk, but one bold villager steps forward, kneels at the edge of the fountain, and cups the water in his hand. He sips. His face contorts instantly. Salt, he spits, shaking his head. It burns the tongue. Another tries, hopeful, but reaches the same conclusion. Murmurs ripple outward. It is beautiful. Yes, but useless for drinking, for crops, even for daily life. Asterisk, mainstream fact. Poseidon's gift of salt water symbolizes his domain over the sea, and by extension, naval might. For Athenians, who would one day build fleets that dominated the Aegean, this was no small promise. Yet, in the story, the water is undrinkable, impractical. It is grandeur without daily use. Asterisk, quirky tidbit. A few versions of the myth replace the salt spring with a horse, a magnificent animal snorting fire, strong and swift. Poseidon, in this telling, is said to have invented the first horse as his gift to humanity. Historians still argue whether this was a later addition, crafted to appeal to Athenian elites who adored cavalry. Imagine the scene: a horse galloping from cracked stone, eyes blazing. Impressive, but again less practical than an olive tree. Asterisk Poseidon, however, is not swayed by murmurs. He lifts his voice again, booming, "Do not be fooled. With me, your ships will rule the waves. You will conquer islands, trade with distant shores, and your name will echo across the seas." His words crash like breakers on cliffs, and for a moment, fishermen and traders in the crowd nod eagerly. Naval power is tempting. Who wouldn't want their little hilltop village to be the envy of empires? Asterisk, but you notice others frowning. Farmers clutch baskets of barley. Potters think of clay. Mothers hush their children. Salt water may make war and travel possible, but it does not put bread on the table or oil in the lamp. Asterisk. The scholarly debate continues. Some argue that Poseidon's gift represents the allure of military dominance, while Athena's represents the slower but steadier wealth of agriculture and peace. Others suggest the myth reflects real tension in Athens' history, balancing seafaring ambitions with agricultural stability. Whatever the case, the story paints Poseidon as dazzling but impractical, a showman more than a provider. Asterisk Poseidon sees hesitation in the crowd, and his face darkens. He slams his trident again, and the ground trembles. "You will regret choosing against me," he warns, eyes like storm clouds ready to break. His pride fills the air like thunder, daring anyone to contradict him. Asterisk the Athenians exchange glances, uneasy. Some still marvel at the fountain, still drawn to the gleam of Poseidon's promise. Others whisper doubts. And you, standing among them, feel the tension pressing in. Poseidon has shown his power, but has he shown care? His gift may impress, but can it sustain? Asterisk, as his saltwater fountain hisses behind him, Poseidon steps back, arms folded, convinced his grandeur has sealed the deal. The crowd stirs, uncertain, waiting. And across the torchlit space, Athena lifts her calm gaze, preparing to show her answer. Asterisk. The Athenians stand in clusters, their torchlight flickering over the two divine offerings. A fountain still splashes noisily, but its appeal wanes the longer it gurgles. Salty and briny, good for little but spectacle. The olive tree, meanwhile, stands steady, its leaves glowing pale silver in the firelight, each flicker catching like tiny stars. People murmur, pointing to the branches, imagining uses. Food, oil, wood, even trade. Asterisk. One fisherman scratches his head, glancing from the fountain to the tree. "The sea may give us fish," he mutters. "But what good is water that burns the tongue?" A farmer beside him nods, fingers brushing the olive leaves. "This tree gives everything, season after season." Already, opinions are shifting like a tide, not from roar to roar, but from thought to thought. Slow and sure. Asterisk mainstream fact. Olives were not just symbolic in Athens, they were practical wealth. Olive oil lit lamps, seasoned food, and was even mass exported in amphorae, stamped with Athenian symbols. The city's identity became intertwined with this crop, its groves sacred, its economy dependent upon it. Asterisk quirky tidbit. Winning athletes in the Panathenaic Games were rewarded not with medals, but with large jars of olive oil, often hundreds of liters. Imagine lugging home amphorae after a race less glamorous than gold, but far more useful. Historians still argue whether this tradition began directly as homage to Athena's mythical gift, or developed later as her cult grew. You notice how the crowd discusses Athena's gift, not with awe, but with practicality. Mothers speak of feeding children, potters speak of trade, priests speak of sacred oil for lamps in temples. The olive tree whispers longevity in ways Poseidon's fountain cannot. Poseidon, sensing the shift, grows restless. His trident glimmers in the firelight as he paces before the fountain. Do not be deceived, he growls. The sea is strength. The sea is glory. With me, you will command power beyond measure. His words thunder, but the crowd no longer trembles. Instead, you see hesitation evened out. Athena, in contrast, does not shout or argue. She simply touches the tree again, and its branches seem to rustle more loudly, as though speaking for her. The fruit glimmers faintly, a promise of sustenance that requires only patience and care. Her silence is eloquent, her gift speaks louder than Poseidon's fury. The scholarly debate here lingers, like torch smoke. Was this myth a reflection of Athens' values, or the values shaped by the myth itself? Did they revere olives because of Athena? Or did Athena become their patron because olives were already crucial? Scholars may never agree, but the olive's central role in Athens' life is undeniable. The villagers now voice their thoughts openly. One elder raises his staff. The sea is mighty, but storms destroy as often as they bless. The olive endures. Another nods, murmuring. The fountain dazzles, but the tree feeds. Which will our children remember? Their voices ripple outward, settling like seeds in the crowd's collective mind. Poseidon's face hardens, his brows storm dark. He slams his trident into the earth once more, cracks spiderwebbing across the stone. The fountain spurts higher, brine spraying into the crowd. A few gasp, but many wipe the salt from their faces with grimaces. The gesture feels desperate. Athena, unflinching, simply folds her hands across her bronze breastplate. She does not compete in noise. She offers peace by embodying it. The crowd shifts closer to her tree, leaving Poseidon standing in his salt spray, frustration boiling in his eyes. You can feel the decision forming now. Not yet spoken, but written already in the way the villagers stand. In the way their gazes linger on the tree. In the way their whispers circle around practical dreams instead of dazzling fear. The olive's roots dig quietly deeper into the soil. And though no word has been declared, you sense it. Athens is already Athena's. The torches hiss as they burn low, the night deepening around the hillside. By now the two gifts could not be more different. Poseidon's fountain still spits and splashes, loud and insistent, while Athena's olive tree stands silently, its silver-green leaves rustling faintly in the dark. The people gather in circles, whispering their judgments. Some glance nervously at Poseidon, whose jaw tightens with every hushed word, but more and more eyes return to the tree. One old farmer, his tunic patched with years of work, kneels by the roots. He traces the bark with his fingers and murmurs, "This wood will outlast me. This fruit will feed my grandchildren." A woman holding a clay lamp points to the branches and says, "Oil for light, oil for warmth. How could we live without it?" Even a fisherman, reluctant at first, shrugs and admits, better to trade jars of oil than risk storms with empty nets. Mainstream fact. Olives became so fundamental to Athens that the city created laws protecting sacred groves. To cut down a sacred olive was considered an offense not just against the city, but against Athena herself. This law shows how deeply the olive's mythical origin was woven into civic identity. Quirky tidbit. Some sources suggest the Athenians believed Athena's first olive tree stood on the very Acropolis. In a spot marked for centuries afterward, pilgrims visited to see the original tree, which was thought to regrow, even if destroying. Historians still argue whether this was truly one ancient tree tended for generations, or whether new saplings were planted and claimed as the original miracle. Either way, the symbolism remained alive. Asterisk, the villagers argue quietly among themselves. One insists the sea promises wealth and empire. Another replies that empires are fragile without food. You hear a young boy whisper that he prefers the tree because it looks kinder, less frightening than the fountain. A mother nods, her baby drowsing on her shoulder, soothed by the calm shimmer of the olive leaves. Asterisk Poseidon, listening, grows darker. His eyes flash with stormlight. He slams his trident again, sending tremors across the rock, water splashing higher. I am power. He bellows. I am conquest. Deny me, and I will flood your fields. I will scatter your homes. His threats echo, but the crowd no longer cowers. The salt spray stings their eyes, but their gazes return, almost stubbornly, to Athena. Athena does not answer Poseidon's anger. She simply extends her hand, palm open. The tree seems to lean gently toward her, as though acknowledging its source. Its leaves glimmer faintly, silver against black sky, and the crowd sighs in unison, comforted. No shouting, no fury, just a promise that feels as real as bread in the mouth and oil in the lamp. Asterisk, the scholarly debate lingers in your mind. Was this myth a justification of Athens' agricultural base before its naval empire, or a symbolic choice between two modes of living? Historians still argue, but the story, retold countless times, insists that in the moment of decision, the Athenians chose peace, sustenance, and wisdom. Asterisk, the people now begin to speak louder, voices rising like a tide of their own. Athena's gift endures, one declares. Athena's gift sustains, another adds. Soon the murmurs turn to chants, and you hear her name on their lips. Athena, Athena. The sound rolls across the hillside, soft but unstoppable, like the rustling of thousands of leaves. Asterisk Poseidon snarls, his trident sparking, but it is too late. The people's eyes are set. The city, though not yet called Athens, has made its choice. The olive tree has rooted itself not only in the earth, but in their hearts. Asterisk, and as the chant of her name grows louder, you realize this. The story has tilted. The contest is decided in spirit, even if the declaration has not yet been spoken aloud. Asterisk. The chant rises softly at first, but soon it rolls across the rocky hillside like a warm tide. Athena, Athena. The people's voices weave together, torchlight trembling as though echoing their conviction. For all his thunder and spray, Poseidon stands alone, trident clenched, jaw set in defiance. His fountain hisses and splashes angrily, but the crowd no longer pays attention. All eyes are fixed on the tree. Its quiet dignity seems stronger than his storms. Asterisk Zeus watches with a knowing look. His great hand strokes his beard, golden eyes narrowing as he listens to mortals declare their choice. This is not just a matter of gifts. It is a matter of destiny. The city will bear one god's name forever, and already the balance has tipped. Asterisk mainstream fact. Athens was unique in how it tied its entire civic identity to one deity. Other Greek cities often had multiple divine patrons, but Athens claimed Athena exclusively, a reflection of how central this myth was to their sense of self. Asterisk quirky tidbit. Some sources suggest that in the earliest telling, the citizens themselves were allowed to vote for their favorite god's gift. According to one charming version, the women of Athens outnumbered the men and voted overwhelmingly for Athena, tipping the balance. Angered, Poseidon demanded vengeance, and from then on, women supposedly lost their political voice. Historians still argue whether this was a later joke or an actual mythic detail, but it reveals how myths doubled as cultural explanations for social customs. Asterisk down below. The villagers continue to deliberate aloud. An elder raises his cracked staff and declares, "The olive will feed us when ships are sunk." The olive will warm us when storms rage. The olive will last. His words ripple through the crowd. Even those who hesitated begin to nod. Children tug at their mother's skirts, pointing eagerly at the tree's silver leaves. The decision is no longer in doubt. Asterisk Poseidon, seeing the tide turn, slams his trident into the ground once more. The earth shudders, cracks race outward, and the salt fountain bursts higher. You fools! He bellows, voice thick with rage. You reject the sea? You reject me? I will make you regret this choice. His threats roll like thunder, but instead of cowering, the villagers step back, not in fear, but in weary dismissal. They know bluster when they hear it. Asterisk Athena remains still, hand resting lightly on her spear, eyes serene. She does not need to argue or threaten. Her gift already speaks for her. The olive tree sways gently, its branches whispering in the night breeze, as though sighing with relief at being chosen. Asterisk the scholarly debate again surfaces in your thoughts. Was the myth meant as a story of compromise between land and sea, or a clear-cut rejection of Poseidon's power? Some argue Athens eventually embraced both, becoming a naval empire without abandoning its olive groves. Others see it as a moral tale. Wisdom endures where raw force cannot. Asterisk Zeus finally lifts his hand, and the chants hush. The people have chosen, he declares, voice deep as mountain stone. The city shall bear the name of Athena. May her gift endure as long as this land stands. His words ring like bronze struck against marble, final and binding. Asterisk, the hillside erupts in cheers. Villagers embrace, raising their torches high. Children laugh, farmers smile, traders bow their heads. Athena inclines her head gracefully, accepting their devotion with calm dignity. Poseidon, however, storms backward, his face dark as a brewing tempest. His trident sparks angrily, and he vanishes in a crash of thunder and spray. The salty fountain sputters once more before subsiding into silence. Asterisk Athena turns back to the crowd, resting her hand once more on the olive's bark. You have chosen wisely, she says. Your city shall flourish, rooted in peace and wisdom. Her words carry softly, but they need no thunder the crowd already believes. Asterisk and so, on this hillside, beneath the star-flecked Aegean sky, a city gains its patron goddess. It is not yet the Athens we imagine: grand temples, marble columns, philosophers debating in the agora. But it is here, in this quiet moment of choice, that the story of Athens begins, rooted in the silver leaves of an olive tree. Asterisk. The cheers roll across the hillside, echoing against the rocky cliffs, mingling with the faint hush of the Aegean far below. The Athenians, their decision made, now cluster around the olive tree, running their hands along its bark, plucking leaves reverently, whispering blessings of thanks. You can feel the shift in the air. The tension that once bound the night has loosened, replaced by relief, by joy, by the simple security of a gift that promises tomorrow. Asterisk Athena stands among them, bronze helm glinting in the torchlight, her expression serene. She does not bask in victory as a braggart might. Instead, she simply observes the people tending already to her gift, as if she knew from the beginning that they would understand its value. There's a quiet pride in her gaze, not of triumph, but of care. She has won, yes, but more importantly, the people have gained something they will carry into every part of their lives. Asterisk Poseidon, however, is not gone. His presence lingers like a storm on the horizon. Far out at sea, waves rise higher than normal, slapping angrily against the rocks. The villagers glance nervously toward the shore, whispering about floods, about vengeance. Mainstream fact: Greek myths often portray Poseidon as a sore loser. When denied, he lashes out with storms or earthquakes. His anger is dangerous as his gifts are grand. Asterisk quirky tidbit. Some versions of this myth claim Poseidon retaliated immediately, flooding part of the Attic plain in anger. Others say he sulked, retreating to his underwater palace to brood. Historians still argue whether these tales were meant to explain natural floods in the region, or simply to highlight Poseidon's famously temperamental nature. Asterisk on the hillside. The people begin to debate what Athena's tree will mean for them. A potter strokes his chin thoughtfully. "Oil for lamps," he says. "Our nights will last longer. Work can continue when the sun sets." A farmer adds, "Fruit to press and sell wealth we could trade." Even a soldier, who might have favored Poseidon's promise of naval power, shrugs and admits, wood for spears, shields, maybe even ships Athena's gift arms us as well. Asterisk, you could almost hear the olive whispering possibilities. Trade routes stretching across the sea, amphorae filled with golden oil, the gleam of bronze armor polished with olive oil, the smell of bread dipped in it, warm from clay ovens. The villagers' minds leap forward to futures they never imagined before tonight. Asterisk, Athena, ever the strategist, surely foresaw this. Her gift was not meant to dazzle in the moment. It was meant to endure, to provide, to root itself in daily life, until it became inseparable from the city itself. She planted not just a tree, but an identity. Asterisk, Poseidon's fury, though distant, makes itself known. A cold wind sweeps across the hillside, rattling the torches. The fountain of salt water, once so loud, sputters and falls silent, as though even it admits defeat. A few villagers shiver, muttering that Poseidon will curse them. Yet Athena raises her spear lightly and says, "Fear not. He is mighty, yes, but his strength lies in storms." Storms pass. Roots remain. Asterisk, the scholarly debate circles in your thoughts again. Was this myth a simple tale of practical gift-giving, or was it propaganda to justify Athens' special devotion to Athena? Some historians argue that the olive tree symbolized democratic stability, steady, collective, nourishing. Others suggest it represented Athens' contrast with rival cities like Sparta, who chose war and force. Whatever the interpretation, the myth reflects an enduring truth. A city defines itself by what it values. Asterisk, the villagers. Reassured, now celebrate. Musicians strike lyres. Children dance clumsily around the tree, their shadows flitting like sprites in the torchlight. Someone pours a libation of wine at the tree's roots, murmuring thanks. Others sit in circles, already planning how to tend this sacred grove, how to guard it for generations. The olive is no longer just a gift, it is the heart of their city. Asterisk, Athena watches, silent but content. Her gift has been accepted. Her place as protector is secured. And as you stand among the villagers, lulled by music, torchlight, and the rhythmic rustle of silver leaves, you realize the contest is over, but the story has only just begun. The night deepens, stars scattered like silver across the Aegean sky, and still the Athenians linger around the olive tree. Their torches burn lower, smoke drifting lazily upward, but no one is eager to leave. They know they've witnessed something extraordinary a moment when God stepped onto the rocky soil and left, behind a living mark. A fountain Poseidon created has gone quiet, trickling into nothingness, but the olive tree stands tall, leaves shimmering softly, rooted in permanence. Asterisk, Zeus, who had presided with grave authority, now rises to leave. His voice rumbles low, like distant thunder fading. It is done. This city shall be named for Athena, and she shall guard it. With a final glance, equal parts pride and warning, he vanishes back into the night sky. The other Olympians disperse too, Hera with a sniff, Hermes with a sly grin, Apollo humming softly as if to score the scene. Only Athena remains, because she has pledged to remain always. Asterisk, Poseidon's departure had been less graceful. When the people's chants of Athena filled the night, His fury surged like a storm surge against cliffs. With a roar, he hurled a wave against the coast, flooding fields near the shore before retreating to the sea in anger. The villagers will remember the sting of salt on their crops, the sudden ruin of fields. Poseidon does not forgive easily. Asterisk mainstream fact. Athens myths often painted Poseidon as both rival and threat. Later tales of Athens' wars against sea powers like Persia carried echoes of this rivalry. To the Athenians, Athena's calm wisdom was always contrasted with Poseidon's violent unpredictability. Asterisk quirky tidbit. Some later writers claimed Poseidon's grudge lived on in earthquakes around Attica, seen as his revenge for being spurned. Historians still argue whether these natural disasters were woven into the myth afterward to explain them, or whether the myth was shaped to fit existing fears of earthquakes. Asterisk back in the torchlight. The villagers slowly settle into celebration. Musicians strum lyres. Answers spin clumsily around the olive tree, children chasing each other between its branches. A priest sprinkles barley at its roots, murmuring prayers of thanks to Athena. Even weary farmers, worried about Poseidon's wrath, find themselves smiling, reassured by the solid trunk before them. Asterisk Athena steps closer, resting her hand on the bark. This tree will be sacred, she tells them. Guard it, tend it, and it will guard you in return. From its branches, your city will grow. Her voice is not loud, but it carries, sinking into the hearts of the people. You can tell they believe her. Asterisk. The scholarly debate stirs in your mind. Was the myth meant as a way to explain Athens' actual dependence on olives? Or was it a retroactive justification for their reverence? Historians still argue, pointing to archaeological evidence of olive cultivation long before the myth was written down. But whatever the order, the olive and Athena became inseparable. The myth gave meaning to the crop, and the crop gave weight to the myth. Asterisk. The villagers begin to make vows. One elder declares that no man shall cut the sacred olive without penalty. A potter swears to paint the tree on amphore as a sign of Athena's favor. A shepherd offers to weave wreaths of its leaves for future games. Already, they are weaving the olive into their laws, their art, their celebrations. It is not just a plant, it is identity. Asterisk Athena, still calm, smiles faintly. She needs no storms, no fountains, no flashy promises. The olive tree, with its patient endurance, does the speaking for her. And as the crowd laughs, sings, and dreams beneath its branches, you realize the city has truly been born this night, not in stone walls or marble columns, but in belief, in story, in the roots of a simple tree. Asterisk. The torches have burned low, their flames reduced to glowing embers, yet the crowd does not disperse. They huddle close beneath the silver shimmer of Athena's olive tree, whispering about what it will mean for their lives, their children, their city. Somewhere beyond the hills, you can hear the distant crash of waves, the reminder that Poseidon's anger has not ebbed. His fury lingers like a storm crouched over the horizon, waiting to strike. Asterisk Poseidon is not a gracious loser. His pride, wounded, manifests in threats and vengeance. As the Athenians celebrate, a sudden tremor ripples through the earth, rattling stones underfoot. Women clutch their children. Men glance nervously at the coast. Someone mutters, "He is shaking the ground in rage." The fountain he had struck now bubbles briefly, spurting brine, before settling into a sullen trickle. Asterisk mainstream fact. Ancient Greeks often linked earthquakes to Poseidon, calling him Earthshaker. His domain was not only the sea, but the trembling ground, a reminder of his destructive potential when angered. Asterisk quirky tidbit. In some versions of the myth, Poseidon's revenge was to flood a portion of Attica, drowning fields and ruining harvests. In others, he simply sulked, retreating to his palace under the waves. Historians still argue whether the flooding detail was a mythic explanation for real coastal disasters or simply narrative embellishment to highlight Poseidon's temper. Asterisk Athena, however, does not flinch. She places her hand upon the trunk of her tree, calm and unwavering. Her voice carries softly. Storms pass, but wisdom roots itself. The sea may rage, but this tree endures. The people murmur in agreement, encouraged by her serenity. Children stop crying. Farmers, though wary of Poseidon's spite, nod with grim resolve. They know storms will come, but storms are temporary. Asterisk, you walk among the Athenians, listening to their conversations. A potter boasts that the city's amphorae will carry oil to every harbor. A priest promises to build a shrine beside the tree so that sacrifices may always honor Athena. Even a fisherman, once tempted by Poseidon's watery promise, shrugs and admits, ships are nothing without cargo. Better to sail with jars of oil than empty nets. Asterisk, the scholarly debate resurfaces. Was the myth less about divine rivalry and more about Athens defining itself against the unpredictability of the sea? Historians still argue whether this choice symbolized an embrace of agriculture over naval power, or whether it was simply a mythic way of legitimizing Athena's worship in the city. Either way, Poseidon's sulky threats only underline the wisdom of their decision. Asterisk, the villagers, emboldened, begin to weave wreaths from olive leaves, crowning children and elders alike. They light fresh lamps with oil pressed hurriedly from stored olives, symbolic though meager. The glow spreads warmly, chasing away Poseidon's dark shadow. The crowd sings hymns, voices rising into the night, their gratitude to Athena, mingling with the soft rustle of her sacred tree. Asterisk Athena remains silent, watching, her bronze helm reflecting the lamplight. She does not gloat, does not sneer at her rival's failure. Her victory lies not in spectacle, but in the quiet, enduring faith of mortals. Poseidon's fountain will dry, his threats will fade, but this tree will live, year after year. Asterisk, and as the night deepens, you sense that a new age has begun for this people. Their fears have not vanished, storms will always come, but they have chosen the gift that sustains rather than dazzles, that roots rather than rages. You breathe in the faint fragrance of olive leaves, and the night feels calmer, steadier, almost sleep-heavy. The first blush of dawn begins to creep over the Aegean, painting the sky in streaks of rose and pale gold. The embers of last night's torches have cooled, but the olive tree still stands at the heart of the hillside, its leaves catching the newborn light. The Athenians, weary yet exhilarated, gather once more around it. They whisper prayers, press their palms to its bark, and leave offerings handfuls of grain, small clay figurines, even cups of wine poured reverently into the soil. Asterisk Athena remains among them, tall and calm, though the glow of morning softens even her bronze armor. She does not boast of victory. She does not need to. Her presence beside the tree is enough. She offers quiet words of guidance. Protect this tree, and it will protect you. Let it remind you of wisdom, patience, and the work of your own hands. Its strength lies not in force, but in endurance. Asterisk mainstream fact. Olive trees became so sacred in Athens that cutting one down, even accidentally, was punishable by law. This law endured for centuries, binding the myth to the reality of civic life. To harm an olive tree was to offend Athena herself. Asterisk quirky tidbit. An ancient travel writer once claimed that the very olive tree planted by Athena still grew on the Acropolis in his own time, hundreds of years later. Even after invaders burned Athens, locals insisted the tree had sprouted anew. Historians still argue whether this was the same tree, tended across centuries, or simply a symbolic replacement. Either way, the myth of resilience lived on. Asterisk, the villagers now look forward, imagining futures the tree promises. One envisions ships carrying jars of golden oil across the Aegean. Another dreams of lamp flames glowing through the night. A mother strokes her child's hair and murmurs that the tree will feed her grandchildren's children. The olive has become not just a gift, but a vision of continuity. Asterisk Poseidon, though absent, is not forgotten. Some glance uneasily toward the sea, its waves still restless, its horizon tinged with storm clouds. They know his grudge is not gone, yet even as they fear him, they seem emboldened by their choice. Athena's calmness has steadied them, taught them not to bend to every threat. Asterisk, the scholarly debate touches your thoughts again. Did the Athenians remember this myth as a story of survival, or as a foundation of civic pride? Some argue it symbolized their embrace of intellect and law over brute strength. Others suggest it was simply a clever tale to explain why the olive tree was everywhere in their economy. Historians still disagree, but the Athenians themselves clearly saw more than a crop. They saw divine approval rooted in their soil. Asterisk, as the sun rises, the people begin to disperse at last. Farmers return to their fields, potters to their wheels, fishermen to their boats. Yet all glance back at the tree as they leave, as though reluctant to turn their backs on it. Children skip away with olive leaves tucked into their belts, tokens of Athena's favor. The hillside feels transformed, no longer just a patch of rock and scrub, but the birthplace of a city. Asterisk Athena lingers a moment longer, her hand brushing the tree's bark one last time before she fades into the morning light. But her gift remains, a living reminder of her victory, of wisdom chosen over spectacle, of peace planted over war. Asterisk, you stand among the villagers as the day fully breaks. The olive tree glows softly in the sunlight, branches swaying gently, its roots unseen but firm. And you realize this was never just about gods competing. It was about mortals choosing what kind of future they wanted, one stormy and fleeting, or one rooted and enduring. The choice has been made. Athens is born. Asterisk. The sun now crowns the horizon fully, spilling gold across the rocky hilltop. What was once a nervous gathering of villagers is now a city in spirit, if not yet in stone. At the center of it all, Athena's olive tree sways gently in the morning breeze, its silver-green leaves glittering as though each one holds a secret. The people have dispersed to their tasks, but they carry the story of last night in their hearts. From this day on, they are not just farmers, not just shepherds, not just potters. They are Athenians, people of Athena. Asterisk. The olive tree's meaning grows with each passing hour. Farmers walk by and envision oil jars lined neatly for trade. Mothers dream of lamps glowing softly, warding off darkness in their homes. Elders whisper that the tree symbolizes peace, for it thrives when nurtured, not when torn apart. Already, the people are building more than homes. They are building identity. Asterisk mainstream fact. Athens' olive oil became so valuable that amphorae filled with it were exported throughout the Mediterranean, stamped with the city's emblem. The myth of Athena's gift wasn't just story, it became economic reality. Asterisk quirky tidbit. In later centuries, victorious athletes at the Panathenaic Games were crowned not with gold, but with wreaths woven from olive leaves, and they received large jars of olive oil as prizes. Historians still argue whether this tradition consciously honored the myth of Athena's olive, or simply reflected the crop's abundance. But the connection was never lost. Asterisk Poseidon, of course, is not forgotten. His fountain lies silent, a cracked scar on the earth, and his presence lingers like a warning. The sea god does not forgive easily, and his rivalry with Athena continues in other myths: storms, floods, tremors. Yet here, in this moment, his fury has failed to uproot the people's faith. They have chosen endurance over fear. Asterisk Athena, though unseen now, is felt everywhere. The rustle of the olive leaves is her whisper. The warmth of the morning sun on the city's stones feels like her blessing. The people move with new confidence, as though guided by her hand. Her victory was not only divine, it was deeply human, because it gave the Athenians something they could live with every day. Asterisk. The scholarly debate will never end. Was the myth written to explain olive cultivation, or did the tree's importance rise because of the story? Historians still argue, but for the Athenians, such questions didn't matter. They had a goddess, a gift, and a name for their city. That was enough. Asterisk. And so, Athens takes root just like the tree. What began as a contest between gods ends as the foundation of a culture that will shape philosophy, politics, art, and history for centuries. The olive tree becomes not just food and oil, but a symbol of wisdom, of peace, of resilience. The storm fades, but the roots remain. Asterisk. You sit on the hillside, gazing at the tree, the breeze brushing its branches, the air filled with the promise of something lasting. Your eyes grow heavy. Your breathing slows. The torches have burned out. The songs have quieted. The gods have gone. Only the olive tree sways gently in the light, eternal, serene, waiting, Dot. And now, as the story settles into silence, you let your thoughts drift with it. The clash of gods fades, the shouts of villagers dissolve into memory, and only the steady whisper of olive leaves remains. The air is warm, the earth beneath you steady, the tree a guardian that promises calm through every season. Asterisk. You imagine lying beneath its branches, the shade cool against your skin, the smell of earth and leaves soothing as a lullaby. The salt spray, the thunder, the tremors all gone now, left behind with Poseidon's retreat. What remains is gentler. The promise of light, the comfort of food, the peace of something that grows patiently, year after year. Asterisk. The Athenians you stood among are long gone, yet their choice endures. Every olive tree you might see today still carries a whisper of that myth, a reminder that wisdom often looks quiet, ordinary, and enduring. It is not the roar of a fountain, but the slow spread of roots. Asterisk. Your breathing slows with that thought. The olive tree sways, steady and calm, its branches heavy with silver leaves. They flicker in the last light of day. The story no longer presses for attention. It drifts like a soft tide, carrying you gently toward rest. Asterisk. So let the tale fade now. The gods have departed, the city is safe, the people are dreaming, and you may join them. The olive tree still stands on the hillside, timeless and watchful, a symbol of peace that will wait for you whenever you return. Asterisk. Close your eyes. Let your thoughts scatter like petals in the breeze, and sleep as deeply as the roots of Athena's gift.